What's up, mediums? Welcome to The Writer's Journey. I'm your host, Lauren Moore, and with me is Kayleen, the Glamazon Williams, and Chuck, the man Manley. Got
yo!
Everyone's in the house tonight. We are three authors on a journey to learn more about writing success. So thanks for joining us on the ride. One of the most successful book marketing strategies out there right now is to build a Facebook community of readers. That way you can connect instantly with your fans, get their feedback, write and quick, and bring them along on your writing journey. But how exactly do you do that? As a best-selling author, the host of the Wordslinger podcast, and director of marketing at Draft Digital, Kevin Tumlinson knows all about building Facebook communities, why and how to do it, what you should look out for, and easy strategies for success. And he's agreed to join us tonight and share what he knows. So thanks, Kevin, for coming on the show.
Hey, thanks for having me on. I'm happy to be here.
Yeah. So the first question we have just for everyone is, what's been going on with your lives and in your worlds?
Do we mean Kevin Tumlinson's world, Wordslinger's world, or Draft Digital's world?
All of the above.
All the above.
Give us all of it.
Let me do Draft Digital first, because that way I can officially claim this as a Draft Digital interview.
Oh yeah, go for it.
So
get those business expenses, man.
Yeah, man. Got to plug the brand. So Draft Digital, we have been just knocking things out behind the scenes. I know a lot of people have heard about some of the stuff we've got going on with like D2D print and shared universes. I saw that we got a question about shared universes. I'll be happy to answer that. But we're busily adding new sales channels. We're busy adding new features. It's been pretty hectic since the year started, actually. So 2019 has been a really fast-paced year for us so far. So that's what's going on there. As far as everything else, I'm killing it on books. I think I've been doing a book a month release lately, almost by sheer accident. Honestly, it wasn't even planned.
I'm on your newsletter, man. I know you've been dropping stuff left and right.
How are you enjoying that, man? The essay stuff. How do you?
I'm still on it, so that's got to tell you something, right?
There's a bonus. All right, I'm gonna put that on a book cover. I'm still on it.
I'm still on it. So there you go.
Manly. Yep, and Wordslinger, of course, is still out there serving its purpose. Helping will-be authors, build and grow their author careers, just like the tagline says. So yeah, things are going straight up, thumbs up for me and everything I'm involved in, honestly.
That's really exciting.
That sounds so cheesy. It's like everything's coming up, Kevin. In the world.
Everything is awesome.
Everything is awesome when you work as a team. Okay, I'm done. Sorry, we just watched that movie and it's a good movie.
She has young children.
So aside from awesome movies, Kayleen, what's going on with you?
Much of the same as last week. I'm working on the short story, and my daughter just started spring break, so we'll see how much work I actually get done in the writing world this coming week. So that should be fun.
I've personally been editing, and Scott Moon kicked my butt on Facebook Messenger today and said, you gotta write every day. Yes. Set aside 30 minutes, first thing you do in the morning.
It's like brushing your teeth.
It really is.
You should skip writing the way you would brush your teeth, with great personal disgust.
That's it. That's a great way to put that. I like that a lot.
I like it. So I'm gonna do that.
And you know what? And Scott, as a multi-decade veteran of the police force, is a great guy to bust your ass about not writing, because he can really put that drill sergeant kind of fervor behind it. Yeah. He's a great guy to have motivate you.
Yeah, well, he said it very kindly. He said, you put other people first, so you gotta allow them to give you space to do your 30 minutes.
Yeah.
30 minutes. And you're right. Okay, so I got to do that.
That's it. Absolutely.
What have you been up to, Chuck?
Whoa, been a while since anybody asked me that. Well, let's see. I am about, if I have to pin it down, I would say I'm about 75 5-ish% through with the third Brace Cordova book. I have started writing, and this is going to sound so scatterbrained, but I have started writing both the second Pickman Files story, novel, whatever, as well as a brand new urban fantasy project that I probably will just kind of leave as a mystery.
Ooh, super secret project.
But yeah, I've got like 3 things on the plate right now. I'm kind of like Asimov in the effect that I like to have a couple of things going at a time. So if one stalls, I can jump on the other one while my subconscious works on the one I'm stalled on, and back and forth and back and forth. So, and then beyond the writing, I've got kids and softball and rowing and band, and just, it's, you know, I don't know how I even get to sleep. So,
Yeah.
So
You sleep while writing.
Right.
Yeah, pretty much. That's, you know, the subconscious is working while I'm sleeping.
Right.
Speaking of, apparently, I do that in my sleep, because I had written an entire chapter in my dream, and then so the next day for 2 hours I was panicking because I could not find this chapter that I had written. And so I realized, fucking hey, I dreamed that.
It is so funny that you say that.
Wow.
Because my wife tells me, I don't know if you guys know, but I have a former healthcare career, right? So my wife was in healthcare. We were both in healthcare when I met her. So in the middle of the night, she'll like start reciting like patient records and stuff, like she's dictating as she's sleeping. And she says that in the middle of the night, I'll start just like talking gibberish, like other people are having conversations. So obviously I'm like doing fiction while I'm sleeping. So it's just nuts how the brain works that way.
So speaking of the brain and our show topic, this whole Facebook thing has, from what I can see, is people either love it, they hate it, they don't know what to do with it. So as far as the fans, the readers, how can we use Facebook to cultivate those fans?
Just like any other medium, it's really about ongoing communication with the people who are following you and the people you're following. One of the greatest things about Facebook, by the way, over certain other social media platforms, is the ability to directly communicate with people, even if they are not following you. Being able to get into these communities and groups and have conversations with people who are doing the same sort of thing you're doing. People who think the same way you do, or maybe think completely opposite of you, but you're all in there sharing together. As far as like cultivating fans, it's really going to come down to showing that you share their interests and communicating with them as consistently and frequently as possible. And one of the ways that I've done that is, I share a lot of stuff that has nothing to do with writing or my books. I have a weird friction point, by the way, a weird line I have to walk, in that I'm dealing with 2 different audiences, and I have to deal with both pretty consistently. And that is the author community and my readership. And sometimes they cross over, but a lot of times they don't. So that may be partially responsible for why I share such an eclectic variety of content, to be honest.
Well, I mean, you are a pretty strong voice for the indie author community through the Word Slinger and through your work with Drafted Digital and that sort of thing. What I'm curious about is, I mean, do you have like separate lists or separate groups? I mean, where do you find that line between those who read and those who want to learn about writing?
So this is why the actual Facebook groups have been difficult for me in the past, and why I've largely fallen back on my personal profile. But yes, I do have separate groups, separate communities. The Drafted Digital community it's kind of small on its surface, but because so many people follow it, it's really a great place to drop information, drop new content when we have it. And keep that going. So I do sort of balance the two, and it's interesting because I treat all of them like personas. Drafted Digital was around, since 2012. It's been around since 2012. Yeah. it had its own presence, even during that time. Since I've come on and started kind of doing stuff and sharing content on their group page or community page, it's been interesting to see what people latch on to, but it's different material. You would think it would be the same stuff that people latch onto and gravitate toward with Wordslinger, but it actually tends to be a lot different. And then the author related stuff that I share on my personal page, it attracts a whole different crowd. So it's been very interesting to see how those three dynamics work together. And it's a little challenging, but it's also kind of fun because I share a variety of different content. When I share the same content across all three of those channels, by the way, I get wildly different reactions.
Wow.
So
sounds kind of exhausting.
It is really
some of our audience are completely new to writing, and they don't know what Draft to Digital or the Wordslinger podcast is. So just real quick.
Okay. You have come to the right place. Okay. Draft to Digital. At its heart, Draft to Digital is a publishing aggregator, meaning that we'll take your manuscript and we'll convert it for you into the popular ebook formats. And then we also have these very cool automated templates that you can use, very much like Vellum. If you've heard of Vellum, we'll do all the layout for you. You can choose a nice, cool template. It's all free. And then we'll distribute. It's very easy. It's literally click a button. It's not even dependent on your operating system. It's all browser based, so it doesn't matter what computer you own. It doesn't matter whether you're on mobile or on desktop. I have published things from my mobile phone, so we can walk you through all that really easily. It's a very point and click kind of system. I have tested this. I did a walkthrough video. You can find it on YouTube. A walkthrough video of going from uploading my manuscript and putting in the metadata to going through the entire process and hitting publish. And it was under 10 minutes. And that was with me stopping to explain things. So it's a very quick and easy process. And we will support you the entire way through. So if you ever need any help at all, you just click on the little contact button and send us a quick email. And, if it's within our business hours, we'll be happy to help you right away. But we'll always help you out. So we distribute your book to all the major retailers online. So that's Draft to Digital. Everything we do is free. The only way we make money is it's officially a 10% cut, but it ends up being a 15% cut after you factor in the retailers. So 15% comes out of your sale, your royalty, and then the rest comes to you. And we pay you as soon as there are funds applied to your account, you get it on the 15th of the very next month, the closest 15th to you. So that's Draft to Digital. Wordslinger is my podcast. It's been around for about 5 years now. I'm at around 180 episodes. I interview just about anybody I want to talk to, honestly, but a lot of authors. For instance, I interviewed Andy Weir, who wrote The Martian, Larry Niven of sci-fi fame, Steve Berry, he's a thriller author. I've interviewed a lot of really famous authors. I got a couple of really big names coming up too that I'm really excited about. But that show focuses on sort of getting the story behind the story, if you will. Not quite that trite though. The idea, our good friend Chuck Manley has been a guest on the show. One of my favorites.
That's like the opposite end from Larry Niven and Andy Weir. It's like
I think it all comes out the same. So what you get from the Wordslinger podcast is open wisdom is really what it's all about. I talk to people very casually, kind of like what I'm doing now. I talk to people very conversationally, ask them the questions that I think are important, and they share their wisdom and insight. And it's all aimed at helping you figure this stuff out, figure out how to build and grow that author career, and maybe skip some of the hurdles and the roadblocks along the way. So, and again, that's free content. So I'm all about the free content. I should start charging you people for something.
That's two things authors are looking for. The stories and then the free content. Well, about, letting someone else pay your dumb tax.
Well, so I look at it, and I'm completely stealing this. I was in San Francisco Writers Conference, and I wish I could remember her name. I actually interviewed her for my show, but I stole a concept from one of the presenters, and she said you should be, and this applies to the entire Facebook thing, by the way. She said that you should be generous but strategic, and I love that, because what she means by that is you may give a lot of content away. Let's just link it to a Facebook strategy. You're probably going to share a great deal of content, stuff you create, stuff you share from other sources. You're going to give that stuff away, but you want to give it away in a strategic way. So I share a lot of content that's really some of it's just fun. I share a lot of cat videos and dog stuff because I love anything that I love promoting love. Okay, I love promoting. I'm trying to get completely away from politics and just promote something that's good for the soul. But I also share a lot because I write archaeological thrillers. I share a lot of things I find from history. I share a lot of scientific developments. I share things that are connected to the kind of content I create, so that people start thinking of me as the guy who knows about history, who knows about archaeology and quantum physics and the sciences that I share. So that's being strategic. I'm linking my brand, which is Kevin Tumlinson, to these ideas and concepts. And hopefully people are so interested that they check it out. Now, what happens, and this is why Facebook is a great tool, as I share this content and people start to follow me and depend on me for, a good laugh or an interesting article or whatever, then periodically I'll insert, hey, I got a new book coming out. By the way, I got a new book coming out. It'll actually go live at midnight tonight. The God Extinction, pick it up. But so that's my newest book. But see, I can offer all this insight and all these interesting tidbits, all this material, and I'm not charging for any of that, so I don't make any money off of it directly. But because people start to count on me for that kind of thing, when I do promote something, it doesn't come like a slap in the face. It's not a hammer to the head. It comes as part of the flow, and then they're interested. And because they've learned to trust me as a content provider, they're much more likely to go pick up that book, or at least go check it out. So that's part of the be generous but strategic. Share as much as you can, as widely as you can, but do it with a purpose. Figure out the story you're trying to tell.
Genuine, but with a purpose.
Genuine with a purpose.
On top of, with what you write, you're sharing articles that are related, in some way to it, which can also be a way, to find what are people who are following you interested in. So when you do drop that book, they've been liking all of these posts that you've been making of these articles that you're doing more of.
Right.
They're more likely to, click that buy button because they're like, ooh.
It gets even better because one of the great things about Facebook in particular, Twitter will allow some of this as well. Most social media platforms have a sort of open communication thing, but Facebook has some tools that are kind of neat for this. You can. I like to engage every now and then. I ask questions, and I do open-ended questions. By the way, this isn't a new strategy. It's the exact same strategy I use in emails. Especially in my autoresponder sequence. But you want to share, occasionally ask what I have notes. That's why I'm looking out. That's why I'm looking through dramatically to my left.
That's right.
I'm doing the same thing.
So I'll post something and then I'll ask people's opinion. So okay. I don't typically do this with my covers. I'm enough of a narcissist that I think I do my covers pretty okay. I don't want your opinion, but
wait, you do your own covers?
Oh yeah, I do all my own covers.
I did not know that.
I've done that almost from the start. There's a whole backstory to that, but
okay.
Yeah. So, but I do share other things. I'll share an article, for example, and I'll ask people, "What do you think of this idea?" And I try to downplay. Everyone wants to turn anything they see on Facebook into some politically charged, divisive thing. I try to downplay that as much as possible, and I just want them to interact. Tell me. The latest was I had found an article about Captain Marvel and how they were speculating that Disney is buying out theaters to inflate the box office numbers. Now, I don't know if that's true. I can't find anywhere else to verify that. But what I did was post that and say, I haven't seen the film yet, but what was your experience with this film? Did you have a packed theater? Were you the only person sitting there? And so I've had a lot of people respond and answer that. And overall, everyone's really excited about the movie and they really enjoy it. And their theaters weren't packed, but they also weren't empty. So there's that conversation going, right? Now that has nothing to do with my books, but it's guaranteed that those like 50 people who responded are probably following the things I post and are interested in what I post. So I learn a little about that audience from those posts.
Well, and you also demonstrate something about yourself in that too, and that's what holds people's attention, I think. Do you agree?
I do agree with that. And I think you have to be fairly careful about how you approach some of these things, because people will interpret things the way they want and not always the way you want.
Also true.
So I try to be fairly neutral. I used to be a lot more, how should I put this? I was kind of a jerk. I wasn't trying to be a jerk.
Now, hold on. I followed you for a while, man, and I never got jerk from you.
I always felt like people thought I was being a jerk. I was trying.
Well, but I think that's a testament to what you were just saying.
Yeah.
The people that chose to find you a jerk found you a jerk, got really loud about it, got a lot of attention, but in no way express the feelings of the majority. See, that's the problem, is that the people who make the most noise get the attention.
So I'm listening to the wrong crowd, is what you're saying.
Right. They're the ones who sound like they're like everybody when they're really not. They're just louder than everybody else.
Yeah. But I still think you should spend some time considering your persona. So we as authors, one of the things that every author has in common, even if you're writing under a pen name, this is actually especially true, but we are the brand. Like, we are what we're out there selling. We think we're selling books. What we're really selling is an experience, and that experience starts with us. On Facebook, one of the first things people encounter about you and your work is you, and however you're representing yourself. So even if you have an anime drawing as your profile picture and, whatever, you're not representing yourself in reality at all. You're representing a brand anyway. And you're saying, I write books, and you're trying to attract that ideal reader who is there for their own reasons. You're kind of interrupting their regularly scheduled broadcast to broadcast a message about you. And sometimes they dig that and sometimes they don't. But there are ways to nurture the relationships on Facebook. I like to occasionally offer some exclusive stuff so I do this with my mailing list. They get one set of exclusive stuff. On Facebook, people get a whole other set of exclusive stuff. For example, I'll write an essay of sorts on a particular topic. And I usually try to write something I think is going. I have 4 pillars I live and work by. My mission is to inform and inspire, educate and entertain. And so everything I do has to be filtered through these 4 pillars. So when I write a lengthy post, one of the articles that you can write on Facebook, they have a sort of blogging type program that you can use. I think it's called Note.
Yeah, Notes. Yeah.
Notes. Yeah. I can recognize the icon, but that'll let you write a longer post and include images. It's kind of like Medium, which I also use. But so I'll write content that's only going to be available on Facebook, and it'll be on whatever topic has hit my fancy, honestly. But I try to do things that are inspiring on Facebook more than anything. I've started sharing some of the history stuff that I write on Facebook, which I think is probably a good idea for nurturing my particular audience. But that exclusive content is what's going to bring people back, especially with groups. If they can only get that content on your fan page, for example, on your author page, then that's going to be a draw for some people. And you start with your readership. You put a call to action in the back of your book if you want to draw people to your community. Tell them, you can interact with the author and other fans of this work. Go here, and you give them the URL, and they hop in and join that group, and then that's when you've got that captive audience. So
to just to add a question to that, because you're talking a lot about obviously Facebook communities, but there's so many different options on Facebook. I mean, they have the pages, they have groups, and then there's different kinds of pages, and there's all this sort of thing. So what would you recommend most for authors to use as far as the Facebook goes?
I mean, they do a for authors, you can do a I think they call it I forget what they call it now, but it's basically like a business page for a person, and
like an author page, essentially. Like a business author.
They basically call it a page.
Yeah, it's a page, but you can choose the different categories for that page. You can be a brick and mortar business. You can be a service. One of them is like notable person or something like that.
Celebrity.
My whole gig, by the way, my entire career has always been about portraying the image that I am uber famous, and you really want to get to know me. I did that all the way back when not a single soul knew who I was. So you want to. I think it's all right to have one of those pages. It's not just all right. I think you should have one of those pages. It's almost like a secondary home page. That's where your community can start. You can also do groups. Some people prefer to do the groups because you can control who has access. Depending on how you're handling this. I mean, there are groups kind of like the 20 books to 50K group, which I believe everyone here is a part of, right?
Yeah, it's pretty massive.
Yeah, it's a massive group. Now, one of the interesting things about that, though, is that they have community members managing that, which when you start to grow, you can do that. When it's just you starting out, it's pretty much going to be you making all the decisions. But if you've got Uber fans, which authors tend to get. I mean, when people love your work enough to follow you on Facebook, they're probably going to be pretty excited to help you out. So you can start handing off the reins, and people are honored to do this stuff. They become community leaders. They enforce the rules. They kick out the jerks, and they help out the people who are doing something good.
You have guys like that in your?
Yeah, I've got people who are. I'm really thrilled that they're there. They take care of all the work. I mean, it's kind of amazing. They do everything for free. So yes, and I basically run all the different types of pages because of all the different things I do. Wordslinger's page is set up as a video page, and that's been kind of interesting. It's fairly new the way they're handling it, but you can actually upload. Like I upload episodes of the show. And I can tag it, and I can do the full show description and everything. And then I can share that. Well, Facebook, the show is on YouTube, but by doing this on Facebook, I get some extra juice for that episode. Facebook likes to promote that kind of stuff. So there's a lot of cool little things you can do. My recommendation is, first, go find authors that you like and see how they're doing things and start mimicking what they're doing. But just check out the options that Facebook has. Just read through everything. There's so much more there than most people even realize. And there's all kinds of tools. Like they have these like survey tools. Excuse me, I just drank some whiskey and now I'm hiccuping like a lush.
As well you should.
As well I should.
Oh, shame. No, I'm kidding.
So they've Facebook has all these, like, I'm looking at one now. It's like a Q&A tool where you could do put in like 5 or 6 different topics and say, what would you like me to cover on the show this week? And you give like 5 suggestions or 20 suggestions, and people will vote, and you can take surveys and you can do all this interesting stuff. So there are a lot of tools out there, and what I recommend is looking that over and then getting creative about how you put it to work. And that, when you start getting people involved and they're excited about what you're doing, you're going to find folks who are willing to run this stuff for you. So you could just say, hey, look, how about once a week you ask people what their favorite character of mine is, or what story did they think was the most romantic? You know, you can get pretty creative with that stuff, and that keeps the community engaged, which keeps them coming back. So
essentially, I mean, you're really, whatever you choose, either a group or your author page, definitely something that can stay interactive. You know, it's not just you that can post things. It's not just you.
And here's what I recommend. I recommend picking the format that's going to work best with the type of content you personally are willing to create consistently. So, you know, as writers, we're going to tend towards creating written content, but sometimes that's not the best way to reach our community. They read our books, that's true, but they may not want to read our blog posts or our diatribes. Some people respond better to video, for example. Some people respond better to photographs. You know, they want to see pictures of your life, or they want to see articles you're willing to share. And what I recommend is sharing a wide variety of that content, being strategic about it, of course, and then aiming it all back to, you know, getting people to interact with it. So I try to share things with a purpose. You know, here's an article about quantum computers. IBM has just made a breakthrough in quantum computers. What do you think this means for the future of technology or the future of employment or whatever? And, you know, you can occasionally ask some off the wall questions and just get everybody worked up. And the people who come back the most and comment the most, reach out to those folks, tap those folks and say, hey, how would you like to, you know, run this herd for me? Because I can't always be here. And that's how that starts to grow.
Now, are you doing all this on your original Kevin Tumlinson profile, or did you make a separate profile for your public self?
So I have separate profiles for everything, but I am most active, me personally, I'm most active on my personal profile. And mostly that's because when I first started all this, I didn't have those other personas. And I spent a great deal of time and energy building up that personal following. But there are some advantages to using an author page over your personal profile, most notably, you know, privacy issues and things like that. But there are also tools that you can only use on the author page.
Right. Absolutely.
So yeah, what you want to do is, just like everything, is figure out what your goal here is, and then find the tool that fits that goal. I know one of our questions, I'm just going to skip ahead a little bit. Well, I know one of our questions is about I love this question, is about whether people...
I'm going to totally be rude. I'm going to interrupt you. And because you said you loved it, and I know you're going to
hold that thought.
In it.
So, hold that thought.
We got a commercial break or something?
We do have a commercial break. Show sponsor. Which tonight is Valhalla Station, a space opera noir techno-thriller, the SynCorp Saga, Empire Earth Book 1, by Chris Pourteau and David Bruns. The Expanse meets, which also, by the way, is 99 cents right now. Woo. The Expanse meets The Godfather in the space opera noir techno-thriller about corporate greed, rebellion, and mankind's survival among the stars. Revolution threatens a long-standing peace. 30 years after the Syndicate Corporation saved Earth from climate change extinction, SynCorp's 5 factions rule the solar system with an iron fist wrapped in a velvet glove. Food, entertainment, safety, security, SynCorp provides it all. In return, the company requires complete loyalty and obedience to corporate law. The soldiers of the Solar Revolution claim life under SynCorp. Wait, what? The soldiers of the Solar Revolution claim life under SynCorp is slavery cloaked in comfort. They launch their rebellion, targeting the pillars of corporate production, sabotaging refineries on Mars, shattering Callisto's orbital ring. Meanwhile, brutal pirates siphon off company resources in the belt, and hackers tap into citizens' implants, addicting them to fantasies shaped from their own dreams. Besieged on all sides, SynCorp's 5 factions are in retreat. The rebels aim to destroy the company to free mankind. But does mankind really want to be freed? Bye now.
99 cents. Link in the chat.
David Bruns?
And press
Back
play.
to Kevin Tumlinson.
Back. Kid is back. David Bruns is a good guy. He and I are in some groups together. So definitely buy his books. What was I saying?
Your favorite question.
My favorite question. So my favorite question was the question about whether or not you could skip having a mailing list and just use Facebook. And I happen to know that T.S. Paul is in the audience, and that dude is killing it with his Facebook groups. He's got a bunch of them. I think I'm going to cheat because he said it in the thing. He says he has six pages and 5,000 followers. That is more than most people get on their mailing list. So the answer to that question, honestly, is yes. You can absolutely do this. You can start a Facebook group, a Facebook presence, and skip the mailing list stuff, which has some advantages. I mean, one of those is, mailing lists have some overhead. Generally, these services have a monthly fee that's based on the number of subscribers you have, the number of emails you send. There can be some limitations there. You have to do things like, was it GDPR? I can never keep it straight. You have to obey CAN spam laws and things like that. There's always issues with people unsubscribing, marking you as spam and all that. So one of the advantages of having a huge Facebook following is that you don't have to worry so much about that stuff. You don't have to worry about being reported, you might have to be worried about being reported, but you don't have to worry about someone coming along and saying you've been reported for spam too many times. We're shutting down your email account, so that you can skip some of that. It's a little more direct communication. You can do it more frequently. People don't get the newsletter fatigue that you hear about. Now, the downsides, I'm sure there are going to be disagreements on this, but being 100% dependent on Facebook for reaching your audience feels dangerous to me. I like having my mailing list. I like having control of that. I'm not beholden to anybody's terms of service. So there's going to be pluses and minuses on either side of that. But T.S. Paul is not the only author I know who is 100% on Facebook with no mailing list. I know plenty. I know A.G. Riddle doesn't have a mailing list, but I don't know that he's heavy on Facebook either. So really don't know how that guy does what he does. Magic, I think. There is a curse or a deal with an evil entity in there somewhere, I'm sure. But
yeah, probably. But he's also a name.
He is a name.
You know what I mean? It's if somebody hears there's a new Riddle book, and it's kind of like, oh, I don't need an email or a Facebook group to know that I want that.
But when he first started, he didn't have any of those things.
Yeah,
it somehow rose to his station. So
yeah, there's definitely a deal with some extraplanar entity there involved.
So yeah, that's my favorite question, and now I'm glad I jumped ahead and answered it.
So here's one I want to ask. All right, so whether you have a mailing list or you've got half a dozen Facebook groups and pages, whatever, what do you say to people who don't think that they have enough to say or that they are interesting enough to put content into those venues that readers are going to want to pay attention to? Because honestly, I don't think I'm that interesting.
You're more interesting than you think, Mr. Manley. So the key here is to be personable. And there's a difference between being personable and personal. Personal would mean you're telling them all about what you had for breakfast and what your bowel movements are like and things like that. Nobody wants this.
No, that's a non-thing. Yeah.
Personable is if you knew that every week you were going to have to sit in a room with a handful of folks and just sort of chat things up, you would come up with something to say. It wouldn't be that hard. That's functionally the same thing you're doing here. Because the last thing we want is for you to pitch to us all the time. The last thing we want is for you to promote something to us all the time. So it's really better for you to try to be as conversational as possible. You don't think you're interesting, but you don't have to be. What are you interested in? So like I share a lot of history stuff. not every email I send out has this, but I started, I'd say probably midway through last year, I scrapped all the fancy marketing stuff in my emails, took out all the polish, okay? And it's more or less, it's almost a plain text email now. And I went from the rule of thumb, which is always you should keep your content short, to writing really long content. Now I'm talking about email newsletters, but this absolutely will apply to Facebook as well, okay? Especially if you're treating Facebook as if it's an email alternative or a newsletter alternative. But the idea here is you want to interact with these readers on a level that makes them feel like they have a personal relationship with you. So talk to them.
It's almost like a letter to a friend kind of
exactly thing. Right, man. I write every email I write, I pretend like I'm writing it to one person. And I let my email client fill in the name for me, but everything else is aimed at this person. Now, it is a little marketing like, because I will say things like, hey, before I get to this essay I wrote for you, I got a book coming out. And I'll give
right.
So there is.
Where's the line? I mean, honestly, where's the line between, like, if I'm going to write a newsletter out to what I think are my readers, okay, where's the line between too much personal and not enough personal? Like, do I want to tell them about my kids' bad grades, or do I want to?
That's going to be on you, man.
I mean, that's where I kind of run into a thing.
Well, that's the deal. So it's up to every individual to figure out what's too much to share, right?
Yeah.
And by the way, readers are not shy to tell you, I didn't like this. I'm unsubscribing because you talk about your kids too much or whatever.
Right.
But probably they're not going to do that, because think about the psychology of why someone joins an author's mailing list. They're not getting on there, despite what we think sometimes. They're not getting on there so that they can get the latest news about our new releases or any of that stuff. They're getting on your mailing list because they want to have a relationship with you. So honor that. And if you don't feel comfortable talking about your kids and their bad grades, then you don't talk about that. But you don't have to share your medical history. You don't have to share anything personal.
I've got this rash.
Yeah. They might want to steer. So as a rule, I steer clear of anybody who has a rash, right? But let me tell you, some of the things I've shared I've done this in my mailing list. I've done this on Facebook. It's the same thing. I get the same reactions. But I shared a story about how I was having an issue with my elbow, and it was not a rash. It was like I had strained it. I was having like a muscular issue. So I have a TENS unit. That's this little box that has electrodes, and you can put them on your muscle and turn it on, and it'll send electricity through your muscles, basically causing them to spasm, right? And it's good for helping you to relieve muscle strain and that sort of thing. Yeah. I probably do this all wrong. I have a pacemaker. I should not be using this thing, but I decided this hurt bad enough.
I forgot you had a pacer. Yeah.
Yeah.
Don't do that.
That's not part of the story.
Don't turn it up too much.
I've learned my lesson, but so I had this thing running. What I did though was I put the electrodes on, and then I turned it on, but I neglected to check to see how high it was turned up. It was all the way up. So my arm starts immediately going to a spasm. And I reach over on instinct and grab the electrode to remove it. So now this arm's all in a spasm. So I'm trapped. I can't function. And I managed to knock the device on the floor and step on it to pull the electrodes out. Okay? Now, I shared this story with both my newsletter and my Facebook following. That was probably the biggest engagement I've ever gotten in an email. Okay, I mean, people opened it at a regular rate, but they loved it, and my spikes went up. My sales went up. I spiked by like 300% that day. I didn't even advertise a book. I didn't even talk about books. I didn't say anything about it. I just said, this is what happened to me today. Now, should you share things that make you look like a moron with your email list? That's up to you. And what is your brand?
You know, how do you relate to your audience? Do you need them to think of you as a professor, or do you need them to think of you as, you know, a slick, completely together guy? Then don't share that stuff.
Right.
You need to think of you as human and approachable, which is what I go for. Then share little things that make you vulnerable. You know, little things that show that you're a real human being just like them. And just like in emails, on Facebook, when people contact you, respond to them, especially if it's for content like that. When they find out that you're a human like them, they say things like, "Oh my God, you just made me laugh. I haven't laughed this hard in forever. Thank you for sharing that." That's great. But then when you respond on Facebook or elsewhere and say, "I'm so glad you like that. You know, thank you for being supportive. Thank you for being part of my community, and stick around. I'll probably do something stupid next week." They go nuts. They love it because you just interacted with them, and some people literally will tell you, "I never in a million years thought anybody would ever respond to me." So we're kind of jaded because on Facebook everybody responds to everybody, but when you think of someone as being, you know, some people think of authors as being somehow on an elevated plane, right?
Right, which is
their response.
Right.
I happen to be on an elevated plane, but most are not.
So I do have a question. So when because we had a comment in the chat. Let's see, Rick Partlow said, "I tried to be personable in my newsletter once, talked about movies, life vacations, had the biggest unsubscribe rate of any email I've ever sent out."
That can happen.
So my question is more, how did you deliver that story? Did you treat that story like you would any other story that you're writing? You know, give it a character, give it an arc, give it that.
Well, I didn't treat it as fiction. It was a first-person account. I guess I sort of treated it like it was fiction, but I didn't.
Creative nonfiction.
Creative nonfiction would be a good way to describe that. So I just want to address that because you're going to have people who don't resonate with this stuff, and if you get big unsubscribe rates, what you have to decide is who is your ideal reader and how do they want you to communicate with them. And the reason you decide that, instead of letting it be decided by the fates or by default, is that then you can control what type of content goes out, and you know what type of content needs to go out. So I made a decision a long time ago that if anybody was so stodgy that they didn't want to hear these stories, they weren't my ideal reader. So I want to get them off the list as quickly as possible. I just shared on Facebook to my following, I think yesterday, a guy, I sent out an email just similar to this. I now include these every now and then I write these historical essays about some quirky little fact of history I've discovered. But what I did was I started it with, "Hey, I'm going to tell you this story, but before I do that, I just want to remind everybody I got a book coming out tomorrow, and it's, you know, you can get it for cheap if you pre-order now, and if you want to save some money, go do it now. So here's a link. Now let's get to the story." This guy did not like the fact that I used what he termed a fish hook. He was like, you know, it's just like the news when they tell you that there's an important story you need to know coming up, but first, here's some puppies. He didn't like that. He says, you know, "To me, that spelled unsubscribe." And I responded with, there is a button that says unsubscribe at the very bottom of that email, and that will help you to unsubscribe from my list. God bless. And he actually wrote me back. It's like,
so you actually respond to the negative stuff too.
Well, I do, but I don't get negative back.
Okay.
So
okay. Fair enough.
Of our existence is we cannot, and I fail at this sometimes too. So trust me, I understand, but we cannot allow ourselves to be negative. So people get on your mailing list for a variety of reasons. People follow you on Facebook for a variety of reasons. There is a sort of obligation to treat those people with respect, even when they're not being respectful to you, right? You're sort of out there for them. You're doing this for them. If it was just me, if you go to my Facebook page and I've decided I don't care about my readership anymore, I'm just going to stop writing or whatever, then I can mouth off and say anything I want. It's not probably not the best idea, but I can do it.
But I think as a general rule, you want to be better, not the same.
You should always try to be better.
You know what I mean?
Right.
That sounds kind of cocky, but
right.
But you don't want to be what's pissing you off.
Right. You don't want to get into it with these people because first of all, you're never going to win. All it's going to do is drag you down. So Facebook in particular, this is a very good conversation to have, actually. So I do this in email, but on Facebook, I'm even more careful about it. I'm even more diplomatic because every interaction you have on Facebook is basically being broadcast for the world to see, right? And the last thing you want is to build up a reputation for being somebody who just completely tears down a reader. You know, if someone's coming in and discovering you for the first time, they just read something really high, upbeat and positive that you wrote on Medium or in the back of one of your books or whatever. And I love that Kevin Tumlinson guy. I'm going to go follow him on Facebook. And the first thing they see is me dressing down a reader for being a snot. So that's not a good plan. Believe me, I have done these things. I have hopefully learned my lesson from these things. But this is actually a much better way to live all around. You know, I mean, you should aim to be a better example to people than people are to you. So
yeah.
It sounds like you used humor as a way to kind of combat some negativity or like to handle that.
I do, but there's a fine line you don't want to cross, which is you don't want to go into snark territory where you're being just completely sarcastic and. You actually do want to do that, but you shouldn't do that.
Right.
I heard it.
Yeah.
It's the difference between doing what you want to do and what you need to do.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I use humor for everything though. So and here's the other thing. A lot of the stuff that I write in those messages that go to my list and to my Facebook groups, like talking about the tins unit, the shelves behind me collapsed one day and everything fell down and nearly killed me. I tell these stories and they're humorous, but the thing is my writing contains this same type of humor. So when you read my books, this is the stuff you're getting. So what I do is I write in the same sort of voice to the community I'm talking to as I use in my commercial work. So it's not.
I think that's smart. That's smart.
I think you absolutely should do that. Because the interaction that people have with you most, your readers have with you most, is reading your work, reading your books, right? That's how they usually discover you. So you're setting up an expectation there. If they come in, and let's give some extreme examples. You write Christian fiction, and they come in to follow you on Facebook, and you're lighting the air up blue with every word you say, then probably going to lose that reader, so you should, you don't have to be fake about anything, but, be honest and have integrity, but pay attention to the brand. Your brand is this. If you can't live up to that brand publicly, then you should write under a pen name.
Right. Create another persona for that particular style
and
of
then
work.
That persona always speaks with that voice.
Right, exactly. No, I hear you, man.
Interesting.
So I'm trying to think of the proper way to word this question. You've got Gaelic. I'm going to use Latin. I'm going to speak in Old English. No. So you've got your readers, you've got your followers on Facebook, Twitter, whatever, social media followers. Do the readers come and build up the social media following, or does the social media following build up the readers? And which one should you try to focus on attracting more?
So your energy.
What comes first, chicken or the egg?
Your energy needs to go to the thing that you are going to be the most proficient at, right? So, for example, like I had a hell of a time building up my reader list at first, but I had a much easier time on Facebook and to some extent, well, Twitter at first was my go-to, and then I basically switched to Facebook, and who knows whether that was a better leap. But I had a much easier time with social media. And then over time, what I was doing was interacting with people, telling them about the books occasionally, getting people interested in that. And then I created that funnel that you hear about, that marketing funnel where I offer a free thing to get onto my mailing list, because I wanted people to be on that mailing list because I control it. Now, again, some people feel the same way about Facebook. So it's really just about what you're most comfortable with and the strategy that you think is going to work best for your business. But my business depends a lot on that mailing list. So even when they come in through Facebook and follow me on Facebook, there's a real push to try to get them to get on that list. I've offered free first in series. I've offered free original short stories. I've occasionally offered, giveaways and things like that. So that the interaction on social feeds the list in my case. If you are much more comfortable on Facebook, you can essentially do the same things, because you can do giveaways. If you've got a group, you can offer to give away a free copy of a book or short story or whatever to people who join the group. I mean, there's ways to do that as well. You're sharing content there that people are going to be interested in, so you can interact with them directly and immediately on Facebook, which is, by the way, a big advantage over email lists, because the email thing, people read it and they may respond to you. There's always going to be a gap and a delay. But if you decide I'm going to be on Facebook for an hour, use Facebook Facebook Live, for example. That's a great way to interact with your audience, because you can get them asking you questions. You can answer them live right then and there. There's no delay. So the answer to, and I think the question was, how do you decide which to focus on? It really just comes down to, what are you going to be the most comfortable with long term? Where can your energy go that you can sustain long term? For me, that's the email list more than anything. But Facebook has been fantastic, because it's just sort of, I check in, I share something, I say something funny, everybody reacts, and then occasionally I pitch my book. And it seems to work out really well for me. So I think I'm on to something there.
Yeah, you seem to be doing okay with it.
I enjoy it. One thing that's interesting, I am constantly thinking in terms, and this may be a clue for you as an author, but
I need one.
Think in terms of when something happens to me, how am I going to express that on Facebook? And maybe that may not be good for me in terms of psychologically. But it's been great for nurturing my Facebook audience, because I share stuff, and I get people commenting all the time. You share the craziest stuff, or I can always count on you for a laugh. That's probably the best, kindest phrase anyone could say to me, is that I always count. I know I can always count on you for a laugh. I'm really on Facebook to lift everybody up, honestly. So that's the way I use that tool.
And then any quick tips for how to balance your time between getting all your writing done and saving headspace for writing, and also being able to interact with your audience so heavily throughout the day on Facebook?
You definitely want to silo these things. You want to make sure that when it's writing time, there is no Facebook. When it's Facebook time, there is no writing. I mean, it's okay to segment your day that way. You might consider setting aside an actual period of time to do Facebook. Now, I tend to sort of do it between things. I've knocked out my word count for the day, so I check Facebook real quick and I make some comments. I do tend to time it, not officially time it, but I do tend to try to limit the amount of time I am on there at a stretch, because I could easily burn half a day just bouncing back and forth with folks. But I think there's no real harm. I think you could set specific times during the day that you're going to have 10 minutes here, half an hour there. And you might try scheduling things like Facebook Live and other events that are meant specifically to communicate with your audience. Balancing it is it's another personal choice thing, but I mean, you want to make sure that you have your list of priorities and you need to fit Facebook in there where it fits best. You know, that it shouldn't be more important to you than your kids. It shouldn't be more important to you than the writing. Maybe it's more important to you than doing your taxes. It is for me.
Don't remind me.
So
I don't think it's as tough to balance as people worry that it is.
So when it comes to building a Facebook community, after everything you've said, you know, you really got to think about what is it that you're writing. You know, how can you tailor that to different types of content, be it blog posts, be it videos on YouTube, live things that you can do, funny stories in your life. You know, what sorts of things are you interested in? Do you like cats? Do you like, you know, funny guinea pig photos? Do you, you know, like to see ferrets, you know, running around in a wheel?
I like all those things, by the way. And,
you know,
and I should say, oh, I'm sorry, I interrupt. You have a question, I think that.
No, I was just going to summarize all of the different ways that you can.
Yeah. Can I throw one more thing in that I think helps?
No, I'm kidding. Yes,
No, not at all.
It won't be long. I'll swear. I'll keep it low key. But I'm a huge fan of repurposing things, especially content. So that whole strategic idea, you know, you like you're saying, you share the things that you're interested in. Try to share things that you not only you're interested in, but might make a good topic for you to maybe write about in the groups, write about in your newsletter. To take that and make that a blog post. Maybe you record that as a podcast. Maybe you record it as a YouTube video. Maybe it becomes a section of narrative in your book. But try to use Facebook, you know, as much for nurturing your work as for connecting with your audience. That will give you plenty of content, honestly.
Multi-purposeful content.
I like that. Very good.
So we are a little over the hour. I do want to, I mean, I'm sure everybody wants to talk more, but we do eventually have to stop. Where can our lovely audience and viewers find you?
Facebook.
Of course.
But search my name on Facebook and you are bound to find me. But you can also find all things Kevin at kevintumlinson.com. And of course, you go to draftedigital.com. You can get to draftedigital through my site too, but go to draftedigital.com to launch your writing publishing career.
Very, very good. And I guess I don't have that this time. Okay. Anyway, thank you so much for coming on the show, sharing with us all of your knowledge, your wisdom, and it's been super fun. For Lauren Moore and Chuck Manley, I am Kayleen Williams, and this has been The Writer's Journey. Make sure to subscribe, click the like button, and check us out next Thursday, where we're going to talk about some reading, writing, and everything in between right here on Keystroke Medium. Good night, guys.
Good night, guys.